Overdrive. Today we finally get behind the wheel of Toyota's lifestyle pickup truck in its natural habitat and check out the updated lineup of Bajaj Pulsar NS motorcycles. Hello and welcome to Overdrive. I'm Soini Dutt. Toyota India just a year ago launched their very first lifestyle pickup truck, the Hilux in India. Despite it being a very dependable offering in the world, it hasn't quite found its footing in the Indian market yet. So Bert decided to drive this car in its very natural habitat in Rishikesh recently to find out whether it justifies its steep price tag.
We're finally in the Hilux. It's been well over a decade since we've been asking for the Hilux to be offered to Indian consumers, but it is here, and it is here in its latest generation. This is the 8th generation Hilux built on the IMV platform. Fairly expensive. That was one of the biggest headlines that came out when the Hilux was introduced in India. But today I'm going to see just how worth it actually is. Now, the Hilux is one of the last few of the body-on-frame chassis pickups, or rather off-road recreational vehicles. And that is principally down to it being needed to work and operate in areas where infrastructure is still very weak, which means you've got bad roads, off-road trails, and various other obstacles, for which a ladder frame chassis works pretty well. This was built to explore the outdoors, to get out there with your family, with your friends, explore the wild. So if you're that kind of person who likes traveling, who loves road trips, it makes a lot of sense. The architecture also boasts of a much more powerful drivetrain. You've got a 2.8 litre turbo diesel engine, and that makes about 500 Newton meters of max torque. The advantage here is that torque comes in as low as 1400 RPM all the way up to 2800 RPM. So not only is it a massively large torque band, it's an enormous amount of torque that you get at a very low engine speed. Having said that, my one concern with this is that, like all BS6 large capacity diesels, you've got a DPF in it as well, a diesel particulate filter. And the challenge with diesel particulate filters, as I've experienced over years, is that at higher altitudes, when you're running richer mixtures, the filter tends to get clogged up pretty easily, very quickly. What I do like about this engine is that the peak torque, the 500 Newton meters of torque, comes in very early. In the manual transmission, it comes in at about 1400 RPM. The automatic that I'm driving comes in at about 1600 RPM. At 1600 RPM, you're in peak torque. And that means you've got an effortless engine, you've got an effortless drive. You're on the boil at all times. You just don't sense a loss of momentum at any given point in time. Step on the pedal and, well, you've got power and more power coming through this drivetrain. We've already entered a trail. It's a broken patch, broken tarmac, small bits of tarmac here and there visible, but largely it's all turned to dirt. And this is where you get a sense of what the ride quality is like. And I must say, I'm quite impressed with the way this is working. The independent front suspension, and despite having a leaf spring setup at the rear, ride quality is quite sorted out.
The Hilux offers a rear diff locker and electronic traction control to make any off-road work easy. However, when the rear diff is engaged, it switches off the ETC on the front axle, essentially making this a 3-wheel drive instead of 4. So if the front wheel starts spinning, then the rear axle is all you have to get yourself out of a sticky situation. For most off-road conditions though, the ETC, which Toyota has developed over several years of the Hilux's existence, is more than enough for all the hard work.
So while doing the moguls, or the articulation track, this is where we can clearly see what the underbody is like. And you'd notice that at the rear, you've got a leaf spring setup. And this is vital because the Hilux is essentially a load-carrying pickup truck, which means it needs a much stronger suspension setup at the rear. Most pickups have got a leaf spring system at the rear as well, and that's also because a lot of the weight comes onto the load bay. This also makes the pickup a little bouncier, but don't bother too much about that. That's an inherent characteristic in most of these SUVs, even the pickup trucks, with the rear leaf spring setup. At the front, you've got better articulation. I'm just going to move this up ahead, and you're going to see just how well. Well, we couldn't get it up in the air, but nonetheless, as you've seen, it lands pretty softly. The flatbed, Toyota says, has got a payload of about 500 kilos, but I think it would be a little more than that, which also means that you could fit in two of your motorcycles, two large capacity motorcycles inside this. And this is a bit of an advantage, is that they've got fastening points fitted in here, and they're at a lower level. Now these can be modified again, you can place them higher if you want, but these ideally work for in a much nicer way because they're at lower height than what I have seen in the D-Max, and it makes it easier to fasten things when they're lower. All in all, given the length and the width of the flatbed, I think you can comfortably accommodate two large capacity ADV motorcycles in here and head out on your adventures. The Hilux is everything it has promised to be. It is fun, it's exciting, it's dynamic, it's highly capable in this terrain. And then there's the versatility as well. It's an immensely diverse car with so much of functionality, so much of capability that makes it very hard to refuse its proposition.
If you're interested in finding out more about the cabin and the features of the Toyota Hilux, there is a longer duration video of the Hilux on our YouTube channel. Do check that out. We'll take a very quick break here on the show, but coming up on the other side, we tell you all about the updated Bajaj Pulsar NS motorcycles.